I want to show you one of my absolute favorite features on some of these Lumix cameras, and it's this autofocus switch. So basically it works as simply as this. If I'm in the S mode, I'm in single autofocus. If I'm in the C mode, I'm in continuous autofocus. And if I switch to MF, that's manual focus. And you may wonder why this is such a big deal, because obviously now most things are using continuous autofocus, especially now that we have things like phase detect in these Lumix cameras. The continuous autofocus works great. It's got face tracking, it's got subject detection, all those great modes. But there are plenty of times where the autofocus still messes up, and switching to manual focus is as easy as just flipping your finger. Just this little switch right here. So from continuous to manual focus. Easy as that. I'm not bumping the lens. I'm not looking for the switch over here. It's a simple switch right on the back, continuous to manual focus. What's even cooler about these cameras is that when you're in manual focus mode, you have an autofocus button right here as well. So even though I'm in manual focus, I can change my framing, press this button to acquire autofocus, disengage, it's off, and get my autofocus that way. That way, if I'm trying to do any detail macro work or I want to have a specific locked focus point, I can be in manual focus. I'm not getting the tracking that I'd be getting in continuous, where as I move, it tracks. You know, obviously that works quite well. You can get those nice moving, gimbal shots or push-ins, pull-outs, have all that in focus with continuous. But if you intentionally want to do manual focus, but still have the benefits of autofocus, you can press this button here, get your shot locked in focus, and you're good to go. What's even greater about this feature set and this combination of this switch with this button is that this works even on older Lumix cameras that didn't have phase detect. So on something like the GH5, which was great for its IBIS, its resolution, all the amazing things about the GH5, the one thing it struggled with was continuous autofocus because it didn't have phase detect or phase hybrid. But on something like a GH5 or even on a GH4, you can have it in manual focus. And if you have an electronic lens where it can communicate, you can press this autofocus button and get those benefits of autofocus even in manual focus mode. So this is something I used to do all the time on the GH5. I'd be in manual focus because I didn't want to rely on the continuous autofocus tracking, but I would be in manual focus. But instead of having to fiddle with the lens and manually focus this way, I could just quickly push the button, get my focus, good to go. That's really, really nice. And one of the things I miss on a lot of other cameras that don't have this switch and this combination. So even though I've kind of upgraded from the GH5 and the GH6 for that matter, that didn't have phase detect, where I was doing this kind of get my position, hold for autofocus, reposition, autofocus, reposition, autofocus. Very fast, very easy to do in the manual focus mode. If you're getting B-roll or just running and gunning, trying to get shots, you can easily get autofocus, have the assist of autofocus, even though you're not doing it continuous. And even nowadays, when I am doing continuous autofocus with phase detect, phase hybrid autofocus, there are still plenty of times where I might have my shot and want to switch to manual if something is crossing in front of the lens, or for whatever reason I intentionally want something out of focus, or I really want to get it perfect, like on a particular leaf, and I can kind of push the camera into the plane of focus that I want. This switch, super helpful whether you're shooting with a camera that does phase detect, or even on the older ones, GH5, GH6, that didn't have that. This switch, this button, this combination, it's a slightly different button on the GH5, but similar concept where you can hold the button, get your autofocus, and you're good to go. The other great thing I like about this switch with this button here on the S5 Mark II, which is what I'm using right now, is I can pull up my quick autofocus menu and I get all these great features like changing my autofocus area. So I'll just show you how I do this really quick. It's very fast, very simple. So I'm in continuous autofocus right now. I hit this button, I get this little menu, and depending on which direction I push on my D-pad, that'll give me different settings. So if I hit up, now I have face detect, human detection on. If I hit up again, turns it off. Very quick shortcut. So one of the easiest things when I'm shooting is if I'm in continuous autofocus, pull up that menu, turn face detection on or off, and I exit out. Very fast, very, very quick. Quicker than the quick menu and hunting around for anything in the menu, doing it that way. Just that button, face detect off or on, up on the D-pad, there's a little arrow that shows the direction you need to push. Simple as that. The other great thing about that menu is when I pull it up, And if I hit down on the D-pad, now I can pick my focus area. So if I want that big box looking at everything, there I've got that. And then if I want to zoom in, I hit again down on the D-pad and scroll wheel in. Now I've got much more accurate, smaller focal area that it's looking for in terms of where it's detecting. So very fast to not only change between continuous to manual, reset. You have all this great flexibility there depending on what you want, but you also can turn, if you're in manual, it does a punch in. If I'm on continuous, hit that button, hit up, face detect on or off. Okay, it's off, and then I change my focus area just like that. Of course, you can move it around. You can move it around on the screen, whatever you need to do. Very fast, very easy to control how the camera is performing that autofocus in real time. If I pull this menu up, again, down on the D-pad, shrink that size down, and let's say I want it over here actually, put it over to the side, or I want to do, one hand, don't remove it. You can dial that in wherever you want. If I want to reset it, I just hit in on that joystick, resets to center, hit it again, it'll go back to where it was before. There's so much speed built into the way this handles focusing that I just absolutely love it. I couldn't think of doing it any other way because this just works for me. Face detect on and off, human detect on and off, just up on the D-pad, change that focus area, super quick, super easy, and I can keep rolling. All of this works whether you're recording or not recording, so there's no difference there. It just works great, and it's super easy, all with one hand, super simple, and anytime I don't have this control here, I really, really miss it.